A very popular president is so far behind in the polls in the moment. What do you attribute that to?
Well, I think people are not sure what he stands for. They don't know what George Bush represents other than perhaps 4 more years of the same, and maybe without President Reagan's charisma. I think that it's clear that the undecided voters in this race want to go beyond the past 8 years, but they want to preserve prosperity, they want to preserve peace. They know, however, that there are a lot of serious problems this country's got that we haven't addressed, and I think that that's why that Governor Dukakis is doing so well in the polls. They see him as an aggressive, new, different kind of Democrat who's proven he can work with business, who's proven he can work with a successful economy and produce results and solve problems. I respectfully disagree with the characterization of his record by my friend Governor Sununu, and I think that most other governors disagree as well. In 1985, Newsweek did a poll of the governors, Republicans and Democrats, and asked them to list the most effective governors in the country, and Governor Dukakis won that poll by quite a wide margin. And Mr. Gergen's magazine did an analysis of the best governors in the country, calling on experts who were not elected officials earlier this year or late last year. They reached the same conclusion, that he was one of the 3 or 4 best governors in the country. So I believe he has been a good governor. I think he's been very good for the Massachusetts economy. I think if he hadn't been, he never could have raised all the money he raised from the business community in Massachusetts. And it's that broad base that's got the Republicans worried. We're going to be able to run this campaign in all 4 regions of the country, and I think to be very successful in November.
How do you answer the charge that Governor Sununu just made that Mr. Dukakis is only 1% to the right of Jesse Jackson? Is this going to be a competition to sound more conservative?
Well, I doubt that. I think
that's what it sounded like last night when Mr. Dukakis was being interviewed in California. He was saying to Mr. Bush, "I'm more conservative than you are."
Well, he might be on some issues, and we'll see as the debate unfolds. But I think that to say that he's only 1% to the right of Reverend Jackson on the tax issue, on the defense issue, is fairly inaccurate. And I think that the voters plainly thought there was a difference in these last primaries. And we're going to have a debate in the campaign, and we'll see which candidate the voters believe. But I believe that Michael Dukakis can better represent a clear majority of the American people, and I think that his record will stand the scrutiny that the Republicans should give it and will. And I think the debate will focus in ways that will show you that he's the kind of man with the kind of character, as well as the kind of experience and the kind of discipline and judgment and courage we need to be president.
Governor Sununu, Mr. Dukakis evidently expects a very negative campaign from your side. He said last night that it would be quicksand for the Republicans if they waste this opportunity in mudslinging and name-calling and so on. Is that what the Bush campaign is going to be? It's going to be basically an attempt to discredit Governor Dukakis?
No, I think you're going to see the Vice President articulate the difference between himself and Mike Dukakis on issues like family, on issues such as defense, on issues such as fiscal policy, on issues such as taxes. But the reason Michael Dukakis is worried is that what Michael Dukakis has portrayed himself at through the primaries has nothing to do with the reality of what Michael Dukakis has done and not done in Massachusetts. With all due respect to Governor Clinton, we're talking hard facts. We're talking about the fact that Massachusetts has the worst record on manufacturing jobs, the worst record on employment, total employment within the state. It has the state with the flattest population. It has virtually lost tens of thousands of people to all the other New England states as they voted with their feet. It has lost businesses to the other New England states. And the fact is that reality is the hard record, and he certainly would feel more comfortable if that hard record were not brought forward. But it is going to be brought forward, and this Massachusetts miracle he's been talking about will clearly be identified as the mirage.
Are you planning an equally negative campaign the other way against George Bush, Mr. Clinton?
I don't think so. Governor Dukakis is not quite as comfortable, I think, as the Republicans will be with a negative campaign. But I would certainly expect him to answer those charges and also to raise some questions about the Vice President's record, about what he knew and when he knew it and whether he was involved in certain decisions. At least Michael Dukakis is going to be held responsible for decisions he's made. He won't be denying that he did make decisions, and he'll be glad to tell you what he knew and what he didn't know. And I think that there will be some issues of confrontation revolving around the Vice President's record. But let me just go back to this economy, if I might. I spent a lot of time studying the whole issue of to what extent a governor can affect an economy, and all the states in my region are worse off than all the states in New England. The fact is that the engine of New England's economic recovery has, to some extent in the last several years, been centered in the greater Boston area. All the New England states around Massachusetts have benefited from the spillover. There are tens of thousands of people who live in New Hampshire and work in Massachusetts. The same is true of Vermont and other states. I don't think there's any question that the partnerships which were established between Mike Dukakis and the business community helped to accelerate the rate of economic growth, helped to spread it to towns that were formerly depressed, helped to put welfare workers on the welfare recipients onto the work rolls. And I think most other governors who carefully studied the record feel that way. You can argue these numbers back and forth all day long. They've had big increases in personal income every year in Massachusetts, huge numbers of new jobs coming in there in the last 5 years. And you're always going to have some ups and downs in the budget and things going one way or the other, more manufacturing jobs in one place than another. But basically, that economy has performed superbly well, and there's been a very close cooperation between the state government and the business community, and that's one big reason why.
I think we have a taste of what's to come this fall. Jim?